Hey, what's up? Leonard here. In this video, we're going to go over a basic setup of the Arri Hi-5 wireless follow focus system. So we're going to put three motors on. We're going to have focus, iris, and zoom. And then we're going to go through a couple settings in the camera so we can turn it on and make sure it's ready to go. And then we'll go through some of the basic settings on the hand unit itself, like setting up the lenses, programming them, setting marks, and some things like that. This video is sponsored by MediaBox Camera. MediaBox is your go-to boutique rental house located in the west side of Los Angeles. They have been good friends of mine for many years, and they offer expert service, high-quality gear, and personalized attention. Whether you're shooting a small project or a big production, MediaBox is the place to go. The Hi-5 and the WCU are my two favorite wireless focus systems because I mostly work with Alexa cameras, so it's either with the original Mini or the Mini LF or the A35. And the great thing about the Hi-5 and WCU is that the motors plug directly into the camera in this L-bus LEMO connector right here. And the motors get direct power from that, and then also you don't have to have MDR like with the Preston. The camera acts as its own MDR. And then one of the major things I also like about it is that through the handset, I have control of all the settings, or most of the settings within the camera. So I can change frame rate, shutter, white balance, and things like that. And you have, with the Hi-5 compared to the WCU, you have even more control that you can do with the Hi-5 with the camera settings, which is great. Even if you're not using an Arri camera, you can still use the Hi-5 and WCU4 with those other cameras like a Canon, a Sony, or a Red. And all you have to do is, if you just need a basic run stop, and then obviously you want to put the motors on, you can just get an RF motor. And this is basically one of those little motors with MDR built inside of it. And then this will talk to your handset, and you just power it, and then you daisy chain out, and it'll give power to the additional motors. Now, you won't have camera control that way, but you can at least get run stop, which is at the bare minimum what you really need. Now, if you do want camera control for those cameras like the Sony and the Red, you do have to have the license for the handset, but then you also have to have this little box. It's called a RIA1. And you'll put that on the camera, and then it has L-bus ports and some other ports that allow you to you get that camera control through the hand unit. But again, if you don't need all of that extra stuff like the camera control, you can just get the RF motor and you'll get your basic run stop, and then you can still use the Hi-5. Okay, so I'm gonna start putting on some motors, and I'll walk you through how to set up the whole system and get it ready to use it in program lenses. Okay, so we're working with an Alexa 35 with an Ingenue Easy zoom. This is the 22 mil to 60 millimeter zoom lens. Put a motor on for our iris, for our zoom, and our focus. So we'll start building that now. So again, like with the clamps here, they're standard 19 mil, and then we just have a step down ring on them to go to 15 mil, because we're on a 15 mil rod system right now. All right, so we got one. Let's get the others. And we'll add, this will be our zoom. We have our focus. So if we're looking at this here, I'm not going to be able to get this motor over far enough to get this gear. So what we can do, the great thing that I love about these motors that you can't do on Preston, another reason why I don't like Prestons very much, is I can switch this gear to the other side of the motor. So I'm just going to grab a flathead screwdriver, and I'm just going to take this motor off and switch it to the other side. You have to hold the gear with your hand, otherwise it'll just free spin it. And then it has a capture screw, so we just flip it over, and then make sure there's like teeth. So we'll just line up the little teeth until it's flush, and then we'll just tighten the other side. So you want to hold the gear and tighten it, because if you don't get it real tight, it'll come loose, and then it'll just free spin when you're trying to calibrate your lens, and you won't ever calibrate. All right, so let's add it to our focus. Now, this isn't my ideal setup. I'm just doing this just for the sake of showing you how to set up the Hi-5. I would do, if you watch the prep series, I like to do a rod off the top here and then go underslung with the motors. And that's how I would normally do it if I was gonna be prepping this camera for a job. But if you haven't seen those videos, definitely check them out. All right, so now we have our cables. So there's different length cables. There's even like much longer ones. So we have, yeah, so we have some longer ones. So depending on if you need really long ones, typically if you're working on an Arri camera, you won't really need the long ones too much. But sometimes if you have a motor that you need to put on the other side, you will have to have a longer cable just to daisy chain it. But for this, we'll be good. So I'm gonna use this really short one. So these are the L-bus cables. They're 4-pin LEMO cables. And so it's this connection right here near the lens mount. So this is where it is with all the Arri cameras, is that L-bus is right there on the lens mount. And the red dot will face out towards you. So we'll plug in our first motor. Typically the dot will face towards you. Sometimes you just have to rotate a little bit. Don't put too much pressure. And then we can just start using our other short cables and kind of start daisy chaining them. And you can wrap them up. They do make really short cables too that'll just kind of nicely go here to here, but you know, it just depends on what the rental house has, or, you know, if you're buying one of these, which ones you have. You know, it's not a pretty, you know, this isn't exactly how I would do it, but we'll make do. So if we look here on the motors, each one says fizz, and that means focus, iris, zoom. And that means that's what that motor is set up to do. So we have to make sure, we're gonna go through and change it to make sure that each one is set up for the one that we want it to be. So this is our iris, so we're just gonna come in, we're gonna tap the button, and it highlights F, so then we're gonna tap it again. Now it's I, so it's glowing I, so that means it's set up for iris. So now we'll just do, this one is our zoom. So we'll keep pressing it. Now it's Z for zoom. And then this one is already on F, so this is our focus motor. So now they're all flashing green and red. That means they're not connected and they haven't been calibrated. So now that we've got our motor set up, let's go into the camera and turn on the ECS, or basically turning on the MDR inside of the camera so we can use our hand unit. So we'll go to the settings, we'll scroll down to lens and ECS, and then we're gonna go to radio, and this is a touch screen as well on the 65, or the 35, so we can touch that, and then power. So as long as power is checked, that means that the ECS or / MDR is turned on. And then now we're gonna come down to our channel. So this is the channel that our hand unit is also going to be on so that it will talk to the camera. So let's say you have multiple cameras, you want to make sure you're not on the same channel. Or maybe you're on the prep floor and someone else is using a WCU or a Hi-5 because they use the same radio frequencies. You'll want to change your channel so you're not getting any kind of interference from them. You know, if you're trying to calibrate and you're on the same channel as someone, it's going to make your motor jump and you're not going to be able to properly program your lenses. So make sure, you know, you're on the channel you want to be on. And then for region, obviously if you're in the US, just put it in the US. And then that's all we have to do in the camera. And then now we can go to our hand unit and we can start to program our focus, iris, zoom for this lens. We'll just do a quick walkthrough of what the different parts of the handset are. So we have our power button down at the bottom, function button, and then these buttons here that will correlate with what's on the screen. Same thing at the top. We have our page button, which will change pages. Our record button, which is our run stop, and then this light also indicates if it'll turn red if we're rolling, and then green if we're on standby. This is our iris slider. This is our zoom rocker. In the settings menu, it would also be used as like a little joystick. This is our focus knob. And then here on the back, we have some programmable buttons. With the number 3 button, that can also act as like your enter button. So when I'm doing a lot of these settings, my finger is back here pressing the 3 button as like the enter. We have some inputs and outputs, some L-bus and serial. We have our wireless antenna unit. So that's the new thing with the Hi-5 is they have different modules that go in for the wireless system. So the screen is also a touch screen. So we can press, you know, lenses and we can go into lens mapping and start doing stuff. And this is our witness mark for our focus marks. So obviously if we're lining up 10 feet, you want to put it on that mark. So that's our 10 feet. So now let's make sure that our hand unit is set up to work with our camera. So if we hit our page button a couple times and we can go to radio, we'll make sure the radio's on. We're on channel 7. That was our radio channel that we were on the camera. So then we're good to go. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to come in and we're going to go to page again, and we're going to go hit it twice, and we're going to go down to motor setup. So I'm going to touch that and then focus. So our torque is on 4. So generally on your focus, you want your torque all the way up so that you have the fastest response. that you can get. For side, what that is that's motor direction basically. So we're trying to see if our motor is going in the right direction. In the Focus 101 video, we talk about the direction of the wheel. So we want to go this way, so out from the bottom, we're throwing focus to deep, and then we come close, pulling it in from the bottom. So it looks like if I'm looking at the camera and that is how it's set up. As I'm going away, it's going to infinity. So if it wasn't, you would just come in here and you would hit that and change it to the other side. So then now it's reversed. So now as I'm coming close, it's actually going to infinity. So we'll switch that back. And then teeth, auto, you can just leave that auto. Most of the gears on lenses are going to be the 0.80 pitch. So you don't have to worry about that. And now let's go back and we'll go to our iris one. So our iris motor, our torque doesn't need to be that high on the iris motor because it's not about response time or anything like that. You just need it enough to spin the gear. So we're going to put it on low torque. So 2 is fine. I think it can go down to 1, but 2 is fine. So we'll set that, we'll press set, and then we'll make sure it's on the right side. So basically, typically you want up to be going open and down to close. So I'm looking at the camera and it's the opposite. So I'm going down and it's opening up. So I'm just going to come in here. I'll hit that. So now as I'm going up, it's opening up and now it's closing down. So now we'll go back and we'll go to our zoom. And now we want to make sure our zoom, we should probably put that, our torque, it could probably be at 3 because we're just doing the zoom on our hand unit. We're not going to be doing like probably any active zooms during the shot. It could be that you will, but in general, we probably won't be. So we'll just keep it at 3. And then side, we want to make sure, so remember this is for our zoom rocker. So we want to make sure as we're pushing up that it's zooming in, and as we're pushing down, it's zooming out. So I just have to exit out of there, and then, because you can use this for menu selection as well. So I had to come out of the menu, and as I'm pulling back, it's going wide, and as I'm pushing up, it is going tight. That motor is good to go. So all of our motors are set up in the direction that we need them to be, and they're set up with the torque that we need them at. So next up, we're going to program the lens, and then we'll be able to go further into the menus. So we're going to hit, lens, we're going to hit lens, we're going to go to lens mapping. So we're going to map this lens. So this is an ingenue lens, and remember, I'm pressing the 3 in the back as my enter. So if you're wondering why it's just going without me touching anything, that's what I'm doing. And then enter the type, so this is an EZ zoom. So I'm just going to type EZ and hit set. It is a zoom lens, and you can choose the focal length. If it was a prime lens, you can choose the focal length. But this is a zoom lens, so we're going to come back up to zoom. So zoom. And then serial number, you can put the serial number if you want. If you were working with 2 of these same lenses, you would want to put the serial number. But we're going to skip that for now. And then we're in feet, so we're going to set feet. And then now we're going to create a new one. So we're going to have to calibrate. So it's going to calibrate all of our motors. Okay, now for our motor teeth, we'll just keep all on auto. And then now we're going to program which axis we want to program. So we're going to do focus first. So we'll come into focus, and then we're going to be looking at the lens and setting the lens to infinity. So then we'll hit infinity, and then again, I'm on the back, I'm hitting this enter number 3 button. You could always hit add here, and that'll add it. So then next, it's going to take us all the way to the closest. So now I'm looking for the close focus on the lens, and it is 2 feet. And now we're going to go to each mark on the lens. So the next mark on the lens is 2 feet, 2 inches. So now I'm using this jog wheel to kind of go there, and then I'm hitting the 3 on the back and now hitting enter. And then we're going to go, the next one mark is 2 feet, 4 inches. And the next one is 2 foot, 6. It can kind of anticipate a little bit what the next one's going to be. Sometimes you'll have to change it. So 2.9 next, 3 feet next. Now, even though it is kind of annoying that you have to put in every mark, the drawback to with the Preston is with those 10 points is sometimes you have these older vintage lenses that you can't get enough points. And so you have to kind of make up points and kind of guess correctly, try to guess as accurately as you can to make up points because it needs 10. It cannot calibrate a lens without 10. It cannot program a lens without those 10 points. But with the Hi-5 and the WCU, you can come in and just add them each one, and it doesn't have to have like a minimum number. I'm sure it probably has to have at least a couple, but generally you're going to have at least 5. So you can just come in and do that. And then so once we're finished, we've got all the way back to infinity. We hit finish, and And now we're going to do our iris. So now our iris, our wide open on the iris is a 3. So we'll take this up to a 3. I'll press enter, and then now our next one, now I'm sliding the slider to a 4, and then our next one is a 5, 6. Now the nice thing with this is you don't have to do the thirds of stop marks, because it will tell you exactly where you're at once we get this programmed. It'll tell you if you're at like a 2 2/3 or a 5, 6 1/2 or something like that. So 22, and then all the way closed down on this lens is at 32. All right, and then we just hit finish, and then now we're going to come into our zoom, and then now our zoom, we're using the slider again on our zoom. This is how you program it. Even though the zoom, once we get this programmed, this slider will be for our iris, because we're using this joystick for programming, it's diverting to the slider for when we're programming. So we're setting our wide angle. So our wide angle is a 22. So we'll come find a 22. All right, and then we're going to go up to the next mark on the lens is a 25. And then the next one is a 30. Next, 35. 40. Now on this lens, there's no actual marks for the focal length, so I'm just putting it to the middle of the number. So 50, 55, oh, I messed up. So if we mess up, instead of hitting back, that will erase everything that you've just done. So just hit delete, and then I'm gonna scroll up to 55, and then our tightest is a 60. And then now we're going to finish. All right, and then now that we've done all of them, we're going to hit save. And then this is going to tell you what the file name is, and you can change the file name if you want. And then I'm going to hit set, and then it's going to ask if, it's going to say it was successful, and then it's going to ask if we want to do another one. We're not going to do another one. If you did say yes, it would just take you back to the prompt to start a new lens. So we're going to hit no. So now to set up our lens table to use it, we're going to go to lens, lens files, and then if we browse, a lot of times you'll be put back to this menu, and I'm not a big fan of this menu system that they've done on the Hi-5 compared to the WCU. It's a little more complicated in my opinion. It's not as straightforward and easy. So if we go to internal, so it's saving them onto the internal memory of the hand unit. So there's our ingenue. So we'll go down, we'll select it. We'll edit use, and then we'll hit use. And now it's uploading and it's finished. So now we'll come back, we'll hit page, and then now everything is here, but we're still getting a calibrate prompt. So we're gonna come up here, hit calibrate. I'm gonna scroll up, and I'm gonna do fizz motor. So it's gonna calibrate all 3 of them. And it's gonna flash until they're done. So for whatever reason, if you need to calibrate just one of your motors instead of doing all of them, and maybe you don't have the handset with you, you can just walk up to the motor and then just hold down this glowing button. It'll start to flash yellow, and then now it's going to calibrate just that one motor. And you can do that for each motor if you want. Okay, so now we have all of our lens programmed and calibrated. We have our focus here on the right with our knob and the screen, and then on the left we have our iris. And at the bottom here, and we use our thumb, we have our zoom. Now that we've got everything set up, what we need to do is, see if we look right now, if I set this focus ring to 12 feet, it's reading over here at close to 8 feet. So they're not lining up. So what we have to do is, there's a bunch of these pre-marked focus rings. What determines which one you're going to use is what's your close focus on that lens. So this lens is a close focus of 2 feet, and luckily there is a ring that has a 2 feet close focus. And there's a bunch of different rings that have different minimum focuses on them, and you want to use the one that is closest to your lens, or you want it to go at least a little bit further, because if this ring was only like a 4-foot ring, it would stop at 4 feet, right? So I wouldn't be able to get any closer than 4 feet. So you want to make sure if your lens is 3 feet, but there's no 3-foot minimum focus ring, then get the 2 feet one, or if there's a 2.6 one, get whatever's closest to it, but past it, but even shorter than that. So you can still have the full range of that focus travel for that lens. So in order to get these marks to line up, we have to go up here, it says rings. So we're gonna click rings, and then you can do auto. So these, the ones with the Hi-5, the great thing about the Hi-5 is that they have smart rings, and that's what, there's a little chip in here and it tells which ring it is to the unit. And to do that, you just turn on auto, and then now we come back, and then now it knows which ring we're using. So if we line up 20 feet, it lines up with 20 feet. So let's say you're using one that's not a smart ring, because you can use the older WCU4 pre-marked rings on this hand unit as well. And then there's ones that aren't smart rings as well. So we'll come into rings, we'll turn off auto, and then we'll come into ring selection. We're gonna go to browse, and then we're gonna go to default. We're gonna expand it, and we're gonna choose a focus ring and expand that. And we're doing imperial, so expand that. And then we're doing standard, because we're not doing left-handed or reversed, so standard. And then we're gonna choose which one of these is the minimum focus for that ring. So this is the 2-foot one, so we hit edit use, so we're gonna use that one. And we're gonna hit use, and now success. Now it knows we're using the 2-foot ring. So if we come into 10 feet, we're at 10 feet on the LCD, and we're also 10 feet on the actual ring. So whenever you put a new lens on, you want to make sure that you're using the correct ring, and then that you set that ring within the hand unit. Otherwise, these markings here on the LCD and on the physical ring will not line up. So with our iris here, it's telling you exactly where you are. So you don't have to get these third of a stop marks that are on the lens. It'll do it for you, and it'll tell you exactly where you are. So if I'm like, here, if we go to a 4 1/3, and I can, there, a 4 1/3, and then if I go now, I'm at 4 2/3. So then, you know, and then we keep going, and now we're at a 5/6. And it'll tell you in a fraction of tenths where you're at. And then also, the cool thing is if you notice as I'm changing the iris and closing down, opening up, this yellow bar here near our focus marks, this is a depth of field indicator. So it's telling you an approximation of what the depth of field will be at that stop and at that distance. So as we go further away, it's getting a little bit smaller, but it's getting smaller, but it's a wider depth of field because it's measuring from about, 25 to who knows how many, whatever this is, to 70 something feet. So it's a wider end, but then as we get closer, that it's getting bigger because our distances are shorter. But as we close down, it will actually increase our depth of field. So if we're all the way down at near a 32, our depth of field is crazy. It's, even we'd have to go really close. Even if we go really close, a lot of things are gonna be in focus because we're so close down. But then as we open up, see there, our depth of field changes. So that's a good kind of tool to use to, if you're not quite sure if something's in focus. You can be like, oh, if the subject's at 5 feet, if they move forward just a little bit, it's gonna be okay. Or if they move back a little bit, it's gonna be okay. Ideally, you would still wanna ride it, but it just kind of helps if you're doing like a locked off shot and you need to know if enough is gonna be in focus or not. That can kind of help you. To make sure that depth of field indicator is accurate, we have to go into the hand unit and select the circle of confusion diameter. To do that, we just have to go to that lens menu and select circle of confusion diameter. And then here in the manual shows which diameter to set it to depending on which sensor size that you're using, whether that's Super 35, large format, or 65 millimeter. So now let's say we want to set some marks on our focus. So we can come in here, we need to set a mark here at 3 feet 9 inches. We can here hit mark F, so it's mark focus. So then there's a mark, and it puts a number on it. So that's our second mark, and it vibrates. There's a little vibration feedback in the handset. Now you can turn that on and off, but so it lets you know you've just hit your mark. So if we clear it, that means there's one. Here's another mark. So here we clear that one. So now there's no mark. So now I'm not going to get any vibration. But then like if you have multiple marks, you can set a mark, come in here, set a mark, come back, set another mark. You can put as many marks as you need. And then you can look at it and see where you're at if you're on the first one, and then you're on your 2, and then you go to your 3. And then to clear it, you just go to that mark and it'll turn into clear, and then you just clear it. If for whatever reason you need to do like an iris rack, you can also set marks for the iris. So let's say maybe we were going to start at a 4 and we need to close down one stop. We're going to do iris rack in the shot. So then you have those marks and it's vibrating again. So maybe if you're not able to look at it, you can just kind of slowly go, and then once you feel it vibrate, you can stop. Because you also be pulling focus at the same time. It can be a little confusing. But if you really want, you can have somebody else like a DP or your second AC come in, or your DIT come stand next to you and do the slider for you. So you don't have to do both at the same time. All right, so in addition to setting marks on our focus iris zoom, if we hit the function button, we can come in and we can lock them. So we can lock our iris so we don't accidentally bump it. So it's just going to keep it locked there. And then to unlock it, we just come in and hit it again. Same with focus. If you need to lock focus for whatever reason, you can lock it, or the zoom. If we've hit function again, we can set limits. So you can limit like the focus. So if you go past it, it won't do it. It won't go any further. It'll just stay within the limits that you've set. So now here's the good part that I like about the WCU is we have our camera settings. So we can change our FPS. We can even add a custom frame rate. So if we want to do 18 frames, we can set 18 frames. We can adjust our shutter, and you can add a custom shutter as well. And then we can change our exposure index, our ISO. We can even adjust the internal NDs. We can clear the NDs if we want. We can do white balance. I can do custom white balances as well if you want to do 2500 set, and then you can do the tint. It'll prompt you with the next tint, so you can do, let's say 2 - 2 tint, and then you hit set, and then now we've set our new white balance. And then you can also do playback. So down here it says play, so we hit playback, and it's going to show a clip list, and you select that clip, and then you can play and pause it. So SDI, you can set up your SDI so you can turn on peaking, that'll come out through the SDI, you can turn it off, you can turn on and off surround view, you can turn on and off your exposure tool through the SDI, you can turn off the frame lines, and you can do your status info, or it's going to be overlay, off, or safe. And that's kind of what you can do with the settings. Anything else, you're going to have to go into the camera and adjust it. Like if you want to change like if you want to change your codec or your resolution or something like that, you're going to have to go into the camera to change those settings. But you get all the basic stuff of, like, if you're just shooting, you get all the basic stuff you need to do, so you don't have to go over to the camera and adjust these basic settings. And then here we can turn these 6 buttons into user buttons. So you go to the function, to the last page of the function is whatever you've set these up, you can set them up. So if we go to page and user buttons, this is where you'll set up those buttons. And then the 3 buttons on the back where your index finger is, you can set those up as well. So if we come in and we page and go to system, we go to button display, we go to light and color, we can change the brightness on the knob. So the knob has brightness, so if you're in a dark area, you can change that. And then you can also change the color. So we come in and we change, let me turn it way up so we can see it. Knob brightness, go to 10. So there, now we can see the color of the knob, and then we can change the color. So it can be yellow, cyan, magenta, blue. With the tally status, what it does is green right now because the camera's in standby, also this indicator here. Then if we hit record, it'll beep, and then now this is also red. So now we know that we're rolling, in addition to this one up here, and then we cut, and it'll go back green again. That's kind of a good feature. I like having that one sometimes. And then also we can change the display brightness, so the display. And then you can do automatic brightness as well. And there's a stealth mode, which I believe, yeah, it just makes it very dim. We can also come into, you can change the mark colors. There's a screensaver. And now we're back at the system menu. If we come into vibration, you can change the vibrations for different things. We come in and record beeper if you want to turn the start beep. So when you press to start recording, it'll beep if you turn it on, or you can turn off. And then if recording stop, it'll only beep when you cut the camera, or you can have it both. So, and then you can also change the volume. So it all depends on what you want. So here, if we come back and we press it, it beeps because we're rolling, and then it beeped because we're cut, and you can toggle which your preference is. Sometimes if you want to be more discreet on set, you can just turn them off. Okay, a good a good feature that's come out with the new SUP 3.0 with the Hi-5 is they have what's called a tail slate mode. And this is something that I'm very guilty of, always forgetting to do a tail slate. So a tail slate is when you don't get the slate at the head of the shot, at the start of the shot. And it happens for many reasons. So maybe you're gonna do a tail slate at the end of the take. You know, a lot of times the director or the AD will say cut, and then it's just, you're as a first AC, you're just trained so well to just hit that record button right when they say cut. So in order to avoid that, to make sure you get the tail slate, is you come in and you hold the record button for 1 second, and then you let go, and then this little tail slate icon will come up. It's a little upside down slate. It might be kind of hard to see because it's really tiny, but it's right next to the record indicator. And then now if they say cut and I go and I accidentally hit this, it's not gonna let me do it. It says I have to hold it for another second. All right, so we hold it for 1 second and now it's gone, and then I let go and now the camera cuts. So that's a really great feature, so you don't miss that tail slate, because it happens to me all the time because they say cut instead of saying tail slate, and sometimes you just forget. If it's a really long take, you forget that you have to do a tail slate, and you're just, maybe it's like a multi-minute, 5-minute take or something, and you just forget that you didn't get a head slate. And so now this is going to remind you that, oh, you need to get that tail slate. Because, sometimes the ADs forget, the second ACs forget, the first AC forgets. And so it just really helps you. And that way you can at least get a slate on the take if you can't get a head slate. So that's the Arri Hi-5 system. This will get you ready to go and get you to use some of the slightly advanced features of the Hi-5. There is a beta like diopter thing in here where if you're using like a diopter, you can set the strength of the diopter, and then you have to do something like, I think you have to like measure out how far it is away from the lens and stuff. And then it'll compensate for that, because it will just, when you're using a diopter, it completely messes up any of your marks because it's completely changed the focus range of that lens. And so with that diopter compensation, it should make it a lot easier for you to pull focus with that. I've never used it because, again, it's brand new and it's in beta, but when you're using diopters, it's just kind of something you just kind of have to do it on the fly, and you can just set marks if you need to on your ring or on your manual follow focus or something like that. There also are some more advanced stuff setting up with like the Focus Bug and the Cine RT, which those are like completely different systems. So I hope this helps you get ready to use this on your next job. If you have any questions or comments, let me know down below, and I'll try to answer any of your questions you might have. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Going off walkie.